It has to be very good. So that we can use the word wholeness, can we not, with bread? Naturally. Right. Now, if there is therefore such a thing as wholeness, well, before it could become a wholeness, there had to be all of the parts brought together into a whole. Would you agree with that? Mm-hmm. All the parts had to come together into a whole. Then, just because you have all the parts together into a whole, that doesn't mean yet that there is a unity of the parts. It just means you have all the parts together. So you have to bring together all the parts together. Right? It has to become into a unity. And that bringing together these parts for bread, whatever that unity is, there must be some continuation of it. It can't be just for a moment. Therefore, there has to also be some power that holds it together. So then, there is something that must bring it together. The parts have to be brought together into a unity. When you have all the parts together in a whole, now you have to do something with it. You have to make it unitary. You have to bring it together. You have to bake it. You have to do something very important to transform it into a unity. Because as long as the parts remain distinct and separate, you're not going to have a unity. You're going to have just a mixture of parts. Then what holds it together, see? So if there is this wholeness, then what makes whole, right? That wholeness, what makes whole, must be something that brings it together and holds it together into a unity, so the parts now are transformed into some unitary form. To that degree, to that very degree, it's all the parts, the whole, the unity, well, it becomes a one, doesn't it? It becomes a one. It has a oneness to it, and we can, by heavens, we can call it a one. Then, look, now we want to talk about this curious word, condition. Now this is where we now begin this curious game called speculating. Now, we can talk about, we want to move away from the bread, and we talk about a human being. All right? Would you agree? We can assign that term, wholeness, to health. Health is another word we can assign to wholeness, can't we? All right. Now, as we look at the word health in a man or a woman, and assign the word wholeness to it, we see a wholeness. Does the same language apply? All the parts have to be together. Right? There has to be some continuation of health. It has to be held together. It has to be unitary. So in some sense, would you agree, as long as healthiness endures, then the parts will fit together harmoniously. working together. And what's quite remarkable is that when it works together, you can forget about it. Isn't health the condition where you no longer have to worry about the body? It's an ideal state.
But you can't forget about it because you have to continue. If you quit doing healthy things,
yes,
you're going to lose your health.
That's absolutely right. That's right. That's right. Right. But when it's present, healthiness is present. There are no footprints of healthiness. There's no ringing in the ear to remind you that you're healthy. It has no marks. But by its presence, it brings together a one, doesn't it? And it allows a new condition to emerge that could never have existed before. It allows a person, therefore, to develop whatever goals they have or interests they have, and they don't have to concern themselves with themselves. They're no longer an object of worry and concern. With health, you can direct your efforts elsewhere. So it provides a freedom. Now, let's just talking about bread and health. By the way, does it look like we can talk about the healthy man or woman with the same language we use for bread, good bread, wholesome bread? Relations are constant, the terms may change. Terms being the bread and the man. But these are all relations, and therefore we can switch back and forth and talk about the bread or the man. So therefore, so long as that presence of wholeness, as long as the presence of wholeness remains, then all of those other factors persist. Well, let me just look now. Notice, as we talk, we can substitute lovers, learning, and contemplation. Won't make any difference. Would you agree that when you're involved in learning, jump to learning, there's something you want to do. You want to be in the kind of state of mind where you can identify all the parts you're considering. You want to be able to bring them together. You want to bring all the parts together so you can see each part distinctly. And you'd like to then see it as a unity. And when you see it as a unity, you'd like that unitary way in which you can see all the parts together. You'd like to have that remain. When you see all the parts relating in the way in which they do, you might say the ideas themselves have a certain harmonious relationship between one another. Then you can see the diverse multiplicity now as a oneness, can't you? Wait a minute then. Then if that's the case, then this brings about a completion, doesn't it? The learning brings about a completion. Bread's complete too. Healthiness is complete. And that's the very condition for perfection, isn't it? We can now talk about perfection. We can apply it to these two cases. Let's see what happens if we try it with lovers. All right, try it with lovers.